All right, folks. Thought I'd do something a little different tonight. I always wanted, to do this teaching about, the ancient mounds in America. Because they said that the ancient mounds were found in America, even, that they were built by people even before before the Native Americans even got here. So I want to check that out and just see what I can find on it.
They were a dark-skinned
Now I know why Yehuda's there. You have a history of their dispersal. Right. Now, let's get down to closer to our times. Though they are dispersed at the four corners of the earth, and I did do some research, and I'm continuing to do some research of where in the world they are. This particular talk will be about the U.S., the Americas, the U.S., the colonized America. So, of course, I have to put Jamaica in there, So we want to know, how do we get here, right? And I know it was on ships, but... So we're going to look at three modes, how they got here. Before Columbus, and the transatlantic slave trade, and of course migration we won't even cover, but it's good to have a little history. We have Columbus himself telling that the natives that he saw black-skinned people had come from the southeast in boats and trading in gold-tipped spears. And they have actually looked at the tips from that time period with the ones that they have right now. I think it's in Ghana, but whatever the African nation is right there, same components, same percentage of components. It's the same gold-tipped spears. Columbus's son even documented that. You have other explorers who are documenting that. So before the Atlantic slave trade, Africans were here, Negroes were here, the Jews were actually scattered to this land, something you will not hear in your history book. In fact, the overwhelming evidence of their presence here, we know when Columbus came, he actually took 3 voyages. The first voyage we hear on in school about the 3 ships, the Pinta, Nina, Santa Maria, but you don't hear about the second and the third voyage, when he brings the 7,000 soldiers and weaponry. His first voyage was I'm just casing the land. I just need to see. But how do we know that we were actually in America? Well, different things. When you look in different parts of the Americas, in this particular slide, this is in Bolivia, this particular pyramid, the Pyramid of the Sun. It's exactly the same dimensions as the pyramids in Egypt. You don't have any progressive growth. But in Peru alone, there are 1,000 pyramids. In Peru. Why don't we know this? This is evidence of where we went to.
Wow, think about that.
Now,
1,000 pyramids
Here
in
you have
Peru.
the Olmecs. They made a finished pyramid. They didn't learn how to do it. It's the exact same thing as you see back home. Stoneheads. Giant stoneheads. Very Africoid. And you can see even from the braiding of the hair. Man, that hair gives you away, don't you? You know, I mean, sometimes we look at broad noses and thick lips and things like that, and we think, oh, that's just a Negroid feature. Well, there are like 6 different types of Africans, you know, and if you live in a dry continent, your nasal passage, your nose is very narrow, you know. That's why you have some people say, oh, they were blacks with white blood. Come on, you know. And if you live in a wet or more damp region, then your nostrils are more flared. You know, so the climate has a lot to do with how God creates you. You know, you're still black. I'm just saying. Okay, you're still African. Okay, now, so you have the awesome technology, the pyramids, you have astronomy, you have art, the writing system, the flora and the fauna. Seeds do not spawn. They don't fly across the
It says here, African technology, art, writing system, flora, fauna, DNA, plus Lucia and Naya, world's oldest skeletal remains live in America 12 to 13,000 years ago. So they found an African, they say they found
the Atlantic Ocean
African,
and hit
skull.
America, right? So the same fauna you would see in Africa, West Africa, right there where the Jews are, you will see right there. So you have, by the way, that's Lucia, right there, and Lucia on the left, and Naya. These are the oldest skulls in the world. Do you know where they are? America. In the Americas. So, just FYI, I'm just saying. Hey, Paleo-Hebrew. Oh, New Mexico, United States of America. How did that get there? It's believed that it was once an Israelite wilderness tabernacle about 2,500 years ago. On the rock it says, Yahweh our God. We have Native American Indians who have said that that these things pre-existed before the arrival of their ancestors.
Y'all hear that? Pre-exist before their ancestors.
Here we have more archaeological evidence. This is called the Holy Stones. All historic evidence of Hebrew presence in the Americas. Okay, so that was a little of how we actually, we're tracking them to the Americas. That was a little history. That's even before the transatlantic slave trade. You know, history doesn't stop just because they tell you a portion. What happened before they wrote the textbooks?
Prove that point. Psalms 14, verse 4. For Yah
So, so as you can see,
When it comes to the ancient mounds, you know, we never hear about this in school, I noticed, like, and it seems like, they're hiding something. Because I believe that the Israelites, they were scattered to the Americas, and they arrived even before the Native Americans did. Okay. It says ancient mounds in America are massive earth structures built by various indigenous cultures, with some of the oldest, like Watson's Break, predating even the pyramids, and major centers like. Okay. These mounds vary from simple burial mounds, effigy mounds, Iowa, to complex effigy shapes, Serpent Mound, Ohio, and massive temple bases. Key characteristics and types: purpose, rituals, burials, marking sacred sites, community gathering, and sometimes elite residence. Construction: heaping baskets of soil, often in the layers over long periods. Conical dome, often burial mounds. Flat-topped mounds for important structures shaped like animals or humans, e.g. Serpent Mound. Okay. Famous mound sites: Watson Break, Louisiana, one of North America's oldest mound complexes, 5,000 years old. Poverty complex earthworks from 1700. Poverty Point, Keoki, largest prehistoric urban center featuring monks. Mount Tallest, Serpent Mound, a massive effigy earthwork possibly built by Adena culture used by astronomical alignment. Etowah, significant Mississippi culture mounds. Emerald Mound, Mississippi, second largest in the U.S. Sacred site. Okay, so say how. I want to ask you, how many ancient mounds were found in Mississippi? It's not Native American, though. They keep saying that, but oh well. Mississippi once had thousands of ancient Native American mounds, with estimates suggested 1,100 recorded mounds. Estimates point to thousands of mounds. Some say over 5,000 built over centuries by various recorded sites. Around 1,100 mound sites are currently documented in the state's archaeological record. Preservation: a significant portion of mounds have disappeared, but dozens of intact sites remain, often marked by trails of near museums. Emerald Mound.
near Natchez is the second largest ceremonial mound in the U.S. Pocahontas Mounds, a site with mounds built by okay. Oldest. Let me see. I always wondered about the oldest skull found in American. Now, that's where it gets interesting. So, I think this is a huge clue of showing that, there were people here in native, before the Native Americans in America, right? So it says, the oldest human skull found in the Americas is often cited at Luzia, discovered in Brazil and dated in around 11,500 years old, or slightly older than 12,000 years, representing the first wave of migrants to South America. However, older debated remains like Panteon Woman 3 in Mexico and underwater caves like Naya Skeleton also challenge timelines showing varied early population, while his oldest are younger with Arlington Springs. But anyway, as you can see right here, let's take a look at her. You see, and they said this is the oldest skull. This is the oldest skull in America, right? And it was, well, in Brazil, South America. And I believe she came like over the Bering Strait. They say this is an African American skull named Luzia, the oldest human skull found in the Americas. It says Luzia, Brazil, found in 19. This is Luzia, Brazil, found in 1974. This 11,500-year-old skull is considered South America's oldest, showing features different from the modern Native Americans, suggesting diverse early settlers. So that lets you know that there were, but I don't think they were African. I believe they were Israelites that was over here in America before the Native Americans. The skeleton of a young girl of 12,000, 13,000 years old found in Youngton Cave provides DNA evidence linking Paleo-Americans and see. I know I'm gonna ask this question, but I know the AI gonna probably reject it because it's gonna go by what's most popular. But I'm gonna ask it in a certain way. This seems to line up with people being in the Americas as they cross the Barren. I can't remember how to spell it, but I'm gonna do my best. The Barren. Hope that is that how you spell it? The Barren Strait. Behind before the Native Americans. No, I'm just kidding. America. Let's say it like that. Americans. This is so okay. No, a lot of the Hebrew Israelites try to say that Native Americans are the Israelites, but that won't make no sense because recently it come out that they're Asians, but but it is blurred. Like, are Asians Hamites or Japheth? It seems like the Asians are Japheth, but I got a lot of people trying to say that that the Asians come from Africa, that they're Hamites, but I don't know. I have to look into that more. Maybe look into it tonight. Okay, let's see. It says the oldest human remains in America include Luzia from Brazil around Luzia from Brazil around 11,500 years old, and Naya from Mexico around 12,000. Via coastal route when the Bering Strait land bridge was still covered by ice. Still covered by ice, suggesting people were in Americas earlier than These early finds, like Luzia's, distinct features challenge the single migration theory and show greater diversity, supporting the idea that people arrived before the ice-free corridor opening, possibly migrating down Pacific. For the ice-free corridor, the ages of Naya. Pacific coast by boat with and artifacts now submerged due to rising sea levels. So one could say because I could go to the AI mode right quick. Oldest skull found. Says DNA tests on Luzia's contemporaries in the same region of Brazil confirmed they were entirely Amerindian. They shared a direct genetic. Okay. Considering. How about I ask it this? I say, considering Luzia
being a skull being as old as it is, one could say that Africans were in the Americas even before Native Americans. So Brazil dated features resembling Australia. As this. So now they disprove it. Oh, okay, I see what it is. I smell some white supremacy talking now. So how you go from either you are or you're not? What in the world did they look at? So they said when they first found the skull that it's African. It's got African features. But now they saying it wasn't true. Really? They were Amerindian. Researchers now emphasize that sounds convenient. The African life. University of Sao Paulo. Reconstruction. That seems kind of convenient. So that seems too convenient. Sounds like white supremacy. Shady business. Go from African skulls to this now. Sounds like some shady business. It's a valid given in the lawyers is used to strip African or valid given and why it changed. The original theory in the 1990
So I hear you, the shift from a skull being definitively African looking to genetically a Native American can feel like scientists correcting history to fit a specific narrative. This skepticism is valid given the long history. Scientific racism was used to strip indigenous people of their heritage. Here's the breakdown of why that initial African theory was controversial and why it changed. The original theory in the 1990s, the African or Australo-Melanesian label for Lugia, was actually a challenge to the mainstream Clovis first theory. Some researchers use mongoloid features to argue that a different people got here first, which was its own kind of controversial idea. Problem with the skull shapes. Anthropologists now admit that the first reconstruction were highly subjective. Forensic scientists in the 90s used their own interpretations of lip size, nose width, and skin color, which aren't actually in the bone. Modern science has found that skull shape alone is a poor way to determine race. Yeah, so that they would alter it, cause when they found out that the Egyptian skull, like the pharaoh, had African features and it wasn't. And the scientist acted so depressed. He like, what? He said they're not white. So you can tell he acted strangely. There's a video on it on YouTube if you guys want to check that out. The DNA shift, the change wasn't just a rethinking. It was based on the first shift of DNA from skulls in the same site. So he'll show these people were genetically some studies that do show a faint population of Y genetic signal in some Amazonian groups that resemble Australasian. So Native Americans proven to be Asians. Yes, extensive DNA. You hear this, Hebrew Israelites, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans? So they only push that because they want to sleep with their light-skinned women. Black and just giving them and selling our heritage away. Well, thanks to that One West camp doctrine. Ugh. Don't sell your Israelite heritage away just like that. It's just, why would you do that? Oh my goodness. Yes, extensive DNA research has confirmed that Native Americans are genetically linked to ancient populations in Asia. However, they are not identical to any modern Asian group because they evolved for thousands of years. Native Americans are genetically linked to ancient DNA from ancient remains in Siberia, such as shows the exact genetic mixture of ancient North Asian ancestors found in Native Americans. The ancestral split geneticists have determined that ancestors of Native Americans Native Americans split from East Asian population approximately 25,000 years ago. They spent thousands of years isolated in Virginia, that land bridge, before moving into America's multiple migration, while the majority of indigenous people descend from a single founding group. Okay. Our Native Americans, would
be considered okay. Considered to be Japheth or Ham. Or Asians. No, I need to say Asians. Several ways because of it's common. Most scholars and traditions associate Japheth with enlarging or spreading of nations into Europe and Northeast Asia. Some point to Magog and Gomer, sons of Japheth, as the ancestors. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, let's see. Like Islamic tradition. In many Islamic accounts, Japheth explicitly Turks. So it's the ancestors of the Scythians and other northern tribes migrated to East Asia. Physical features. Some modern literalists argue that specific genetic traits such as almond-shaped eyes were part of diversity within Japhetic line. A significant number of Bible commentators like East Asians to Ham through his grandson Canaan. The Senate connection. Genesis 10 mentions the Senates as descendants of Canaan. Scholars often link the name Senate to the prefix Sino, as in Sinology or Sino, Japanese, as the land of groups like the Male people. Shem theory. Okay, let's see, what else can I ask it? Yeah. 5 great
American nations have black
Yes, prominent members of all five. Y'all hear this? Israelites, they always say blacks, Native Americans, and Hispanics, and all that. That's a huge clue that they don't have our spirit. Yes, prominent members of all five. The Cherokee, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, the Muskie Creek. Participated in the enslavement of black people. By the mid-19th century, these nations had adopted many Southern American customs. By 1860, there were roughly 8,000 to 10,000 enslaved black people living in the Indian Territory, modern-day Oklahoma. Trail of Tears. When these nations were forcibly removed from the homelands in the 1830s, hundreds of enslaved black people were forced to march alongside them to the west. You see there, that shows that they deserved it. They deserved to lose their land. So what you doing enslaving our people, huh? Legal codes, the Cherokee and Choctaw enacted slave codes that mirrored white Southern laws, banning enslaved people from owning private voting or intermarrying with tribal members. So, blacks, when they go that old thing that those Pharisee camps on the street with that false 12 tribes chart. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Blacks, Hispanics sound like Al Sharpton. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Blacks, Hispanics. Man, no group. Man, we are hated by everybody. And if they were us, they would have our same spirit. That's further proof that Native Americans are not the Israelites. Well, some Seminole did own slaves. There's just Civil War alliance because of their reliance on slave labor. The leadership of nations officially allied with the Confederacy. Y'all hear that? Y'all hear this? Because of their reliance on slave labor, the leadership of all five nations officially allied with the Confederacy during the American Civil War. Slavery did not end in these nations with the 13th Amendment because they were considered sovereign and outside the U.S. It took the treaties of 1866 to force the tribes. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Did y'all read that? I don't know if y'all can see this. Look under the end of slavery, and I want y'all to read that paragraph. Do we need another Juneteenth of us being officially freed from the Native American captives back in 1866? That's what it seems like to me. Man, for goodness sake. Everywhere we go, we ain't got no allies, y'all. None. No allies. Slavery did not end in these nations with the 13th Amendment. 1865 because they were considered sovereign and outside U.S. jurisdiction. Instead, it took treaties of 1866 to force the tribes to abolish slavery. Came known as freedmen. This history remains. Man, y'all, this is so much evidence. I mean, this is the spirituality of it all. Native Americans are Israelites. Use this to tell this to those Pharisee camps that says that the Native Americans are Israel. No, those are Asians. Oh my goodness. Wow. Anyway, let's see. Native Americans have said. Native Americans that have said. Let me see. Americans that have said that there were people in the Americas even before there. Oops. Typo. Oh well, I guess the with over the existence of here or arrived separately. So I actually had a video clip. I'm not sure what happened to it, but they actually said that there were that there were people. There's a Native American that mentioned that there were people in the land of Israel even before their ancestors. So, and they say they stole the land from blacks, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's some epic twist to the story here, a true story. So, some tribes have legends about different races. It's just that the Comanche, their tradition mentioned white people who existed before them, according to the legend. These people were eventually washed away by a great flood and turned into birds. Man, that's goofy. The Peyote and Shoshone legends from the Great Basin speak of the Shiites-Kai, a race of haired giants who were said to be in the region before. The Choctaw and the Chickasaw, wow, they were.
let's see. I mean, I have heard a Native American say that their ancestors stole land from black people that were already here before ancestors. Oops, I'm not spelling that right. Let me fix that. This claim is a central part of modern movement, often referred to as Aboriginal Americans or Indigenous Black Americans. It suggests that people of African descent were the original inhabitants of Americas, and the ancestors of modern Native Americans and Mongoloid or Asian descendant groups arrived later, displaced, or stole the land from. Origins of the claim. Alternative history. Perspective was popularized by authors like Dr. Ivan von Saratema in his 1976 book, They Came Before Columbus. He argued that Western African explorers, such as the Mali Empire under Mansa Abukar reached America centuries before Europeans. Interpreting artifacts. Supporters often point to Olmec colossal heads in Mexico, which they argue have Negro facial features as evidence of an ancient African presence. But usually a misunderstanding. As mentioned earlier, the initial reconstruction of the lizard skull gave many impression that the first American DNA has since linked her to Siberian ancestors. This initial African face remains a powerful image of this movement. Storylines from a different perspective. When you hear a Native American say their ancestors, reference to one of these two things, the Aboriginal theory. They may subscribe to the theory that an earlier black population was displaced by later waves of Asian descendant migrants. However, this is not a mainstream view among, I don't care about mainstream or what's popular. I want the evidence. I can care less, okay? Among tribal governments and academic historians who generally view Asians as tribal slavery and land theft. It may be reference to the 5 civilized tribes who owned slave black people. Then, when those tribes were removed to Oklahoma, took enslaved people with them. After the Civil War, many tribal nations stripped their black freedmen of their... See, Native Americans, they don't deserve to have their own free nation after what they did to black people, so... Or aka the Israelites. Say, illegal theft. Fucking tribal consensus. DNA evidence to date, there is no... Says DNA evidence to date, there is no period. Yeah, pre-Columbian African population. Recognized tribe, strongly reject the... I wonder what the evidence. Is there any evidence out there? Just look for thorough. Look. For more on this. Gotta be moving. Let's see. Okay, it says evidence for the claim that Native American. Evidence for the claim that Native American for the preceding document falls into three distinct historical order accounts from European explorers, modern Afrocentric theory, the descendants of enslaved black people, historical oral accounts, European journals. Some proponents point to the early European records where Native Americans allegedly described people of African descent who were already present or visiting. Christopher Columbus, his journal reportedly mentioned that the indigenous people of Hispaniola spoke of black-skinned people who came from the south and southeast in boats of trade. They specifically described gold-tipped spears called guanan. A word, yeah, that's what the lady said in the video. A word with linguistic similarities to West African terms. Vasco Nunes de Balboa. In 1513, Balboa purportedly encountered a group of black captives held by a local chief in what is now Panama, leading him to believe in African colony. Often called Aboriginal American, that argues the original habits of Americans. Yellow black. Olmec, this most famous evidence uses Olmec colossal. Alright folks, so you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I guess I could continue this next week if God's willing. On Tuesday. So I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Remember to live every day in victory, and of course you're in the victory music, victory fanfare. Till next time, dudes and dudettes, and we are out.